Whoa there, Space Cowboy. Brokeback Bebop is a podcast with explicit content intended only for mature bounty hunters. Listener discretion is advised. Listen to all 40 steamy sessions of the show right now by supporting Brokeback Bebop at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast.
I think it's time to blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay.
3, 2, 1, let's preserves. Hi everyone, welcome to the latest session of Brokeback Bebop. Very glad to be back covering another episode of the show, which Steven, every week, I think I am getting a little bit more invested in it.
Heyo, time to start crypto mining the Bebop. If you're really invested, why don't you buy this NFT? It's a picture of the crew for $5,000. It can be yours. And no one else's.
This is now 2 weeks that we've talked about cryptocurrency in this, and I don't want that to be a thing.
Yikes.
So I'm going to step over that. How you doing, man? How are you?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here.
Are you really that happy?
Here's the thing, Zach. We record these things sometimes two at a time. Hate to break the mythos.
Well, why are you explaining it to me? You said,
Zach, I don't know if you know this, but we've been together already. I don't want to bullshit.
I don't
want to fake it.
Where I've been. Sure.
I'm happy to see you, but I'm just as happy as I was an hour ago to see you.
But I mean, who are we kidding? Even when it's been a few days since we've seen each other, it's still, we see each other about 100 days of the year.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's probably not true, actually.
Maybe not quite.
It's like in the 60-70 range.
I see you 365 days a year.
I'll have to count all the tally marks I have etched into my cement wall. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you've joined us.
Hi.
We're talking about session, I said it right, Session 10 of Cowboy Bebop. It's Ganymede Elegy.
Episode 10.
This episode was storyboarded by Yuji Yamaguchi. It was directed by Hirokazu Yamada, and it was written by Akihiko Inari.
Nice, good job.
Apologies
you're better with
to
the names.
all of those people.
No, I think you're pretty spot on nowadays.
Don't compliment me. The episode originally aired in Japan on May 8th, 1998, and in the US it aired October 1st, 2001. And you got any trivia? I got one question.
I have two questions. So October 1st, that was the date of last week's episode too, so they did a little double feature with Jammin' with Edward and Ganymede Elegy.
I think for a good stretch of it, they were doing them two at a time.
Nice.
In the U.S.
Gotta be a baller
just like
evening.
Us, just doing them
on
two at a
Toonami
time.
Or Adult Swim, whichever one this came on first. I think.
Yeah, Origami, I think.
I don't know if Toonami was a thing yet, because the voice of Spike is the voice of the guy that does Toonami. So they're both Steve Bloom.
Why don't you vamp for a second? I'll look it up.
I'll vamp. So Steve Bloom was a carpenter on the set of Star Wars before they made him Han Solo. No, but this was his first ever voice acting job, really, and he ended up being pretty iconic.
Started in 1997.
Wow, so Toonami was a thing. I wonder, when did the Toonami voice become Steve Bloom? That's what I want to know. That's what the people want to know.
Just keep on vamping.
Okay, so yeah, I'm excited for this episode. I think it's a really well-made episode. I think it's a well-directed episode, too. Which, directing and animated stuff is very interesting, but it's still also very important.
Steve Bloom was the voice of Toonami from 2000 to 2008.
Nice.
And then now he's been the voice 2012 to present.
Wow, so there were 4 years that sucked ass.
Well, I think they stopped it, and then they brought it back.
Did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they did.
Why don't you, if you've got a thought that I wasn't listening to that you'd like to finish, go ahead. But otherwise, let me get some of that.
Oh, yeah, directing and voice acting is very interesting, but it's a very important
Are
thing.
you saying directing a voice session? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, directing like anything animated, because you have like someone who is actually directing the voice actors and saying, say it like this. No, like this.
Do you know, is that the episode director who would do that, or is that a different department?
It's normally
entirely?
the episode director.
Interesting. Yeah, animation is so insane. In Japan, is it like it is in the US where the turnover rate on episodes is like 9 months?
No.
Do they make it a lot faster?
Japan, sometimes they're making episodes
Weekly?
like
Because
weekly. Now, a show like this would be a little bit more than that.
Sure.
But there are a lot of times where when a show starts airing in Japan, they have not finished the season.
Interesting. Because, in the US, shows like the animated sitcoms, they make them like over a 9-month period because they do send them overseas to have animation work done.
Yeah, it's interesting. The whole recording process in Japan is really different also because in the US, it's more common for even if you go into a studio, nowadays everyone does it from home, you would go into a booth and record your lines normally by yourself, whereas in a lot of anime, all the characters that are in a scene are recording together in the same booth. And
there are some shows in the US that do that, namely a show like Bob's Burgers does it.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because those characters have such a dynamic with each other, which is truly hard to replicate when you're all doing it separate. Something likewise adjacent to Bob's Burgers, in the early best days of The Simpsons, they wouldn't all record together, but they had those table reads every week so they could read it together, do the voices together. They haven't done that for so long, and I feel like you can kind of tell when the pieces of the conversation are like separate from one another. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? When like the different characters, I don't know.
If you're somebody who's interested in watching the Japanese versions of shows, a masterclass in playing off of one another in a scripted voice acting setting, the show Konosuba, I've talked about it a lot, I'm sure. But I haven't talked about it on this show before. Watch Konosuba. It's like if It's Always Sunny were an anime that had magic girls.
You're always like, yeah, it's so cute. It's just like everything
just like Fight Club,
like, except there's magic buttholes with these gnomes inside of them, and the gnomes are mad. But other than that, it's just like Seinfeld.
Kind of.
Okay, well, let's get into some trivia. I've just got the one question, so go ahead and hit me first, Dad.
How much is the bounty on Baker?
Well, that's my question. Wait, is Baker rent?
No.
Then I don't know.
The Baker's the first guy they got. Baker Panche something. He had a bounty of 800,000 wulong.
Okay, well, what is Rent's bounty?
Was it 1.8 million?
Yeah.
Nice.
Hit musical Rent. Gotta love it.
It's the
AIDS one. It's the AIDS one.
That's the one by Spider-Man, right? He wrote that?
Yeah, Spider-Man did that one.
Spider-Man did that one?
Spider-Man and Bono.
Nice. What is Rent's last name?
I don't know. Or care.
Salonius.
Of course it is Salonius.
How do you leave somebody whose name is Jet Black and end up with someone named Rent Salonius?
I know. Talk about getting the hero and trading in for the zero. This mousy, like, I know it's because he's murdered someone and he has guilt, but it's like he's going through like a drug withdrawal. I'd be losing that guy quick.
Yeah, she went from like big buff hot Jet to like, I don't know, his great nephew, like like
There's
some
no
kid who's
question that Jet is definitely sexually adequate, right?
There's no way he's not. Jet fucks.
Yeah, he's part machine.
That arm doesn't get tired, honey.
Do you have another question?
No, that was my two.
What was the second one?
What was Rent's last name?
Oh, okay. I was just thinking about Jet's big RoboCop cock.
RoboCop. Coming this summer. Coming this summer.
There you go.
To an electronic device near you.
Jesus.
RoboCop. Pounding crime to a pulp.
Oh, God.
You remember when we were in high school and we used to make up porn parody titles?
Yeah, and we thought we were so funny because our parody of The Dark Knight Rises was The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
That was pretty funny when we were 17.
Yeah,
I still think it's funny.
I still think it's funny now.
Obviously, we still think we're funny.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about this episode in a moment because Zach...
Yeah, where are you going with this, man?
We're going to figure out...
I love when we do this, and there's always... It's not my ship to steer at this point.
It's not. I am the current
and I really
acting.
like this laid back. I feel like this podcast especially is that we both talk an equal amount. Sometimes you talk more than I do, and I love that. Mm-hmm. But there is always the awkward silence where we've
Where I'm waiting for you
Steven's
to take
like,
us
"I
to the
don't have
next
to do
segment,
this."
but it's my job to take us to the next segment.
Sure
for
is.
this one.
Well, why don't you take us to it?
All right.
Now.
Slam on the brakes, because we just arrived at our next favorite segment.
It's
Did
really the only one.
Zach comprehend the episode this week?
We did get to this week this time. Okay.
We did get it. I learn and I grow. I adapt. Basically, this segment, I give Zach 20 seconds to give me an in-depth recap. He did pretty well last week. One of his better performances.
Thanks, Coach.
I gave him a firm smack on the tush after that show he gave me
It's better
last
than
time.
the disciplinary firm smack on the tush when I do below a C.
Yeah, he gets spanked regardless.
It's
but
the same level of spanking. It's more the emotion behind it that really
Yeah.
causes me deep emotional
It comes
turmoil.
through. Well, Zach, how are you feeling this week? Because I think this week might be a little bit meatier an episode than before. Do you think so? Or is it a little bit less so because we kind of follow mostly just Jet?
I
Do you think it's more or less, Zach? Would you say more so or less
well,
so?
it's
Or about the
since
same?
there's so
same
much
so.
Jet. It's definitely meaty. But I think I feel a similar challenge level to the last time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you did great last week, so I guess that
Thanks.
means you're going to knock it out of the park, huh?
Well, I don't know. Now you need to stop saying shit like that.
You're going to do a great job, Zach. I'm sure that my expectations that I have for you will be met.
There's always, man, it's always, so we watch the episodes together before we do this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not really thinking out what I'm going to say, but I am like trying to take note of the flow of the story, and then we start talking, and we talk about Robocock, and we talk about, I get to shit on Steven for a little while, but I have no idea what happened in the episode. So
It's
we'll
on
see.
purpose. I try and
Okay.
take you as far away from the plot as possible.
All right.
Okay, well, here we go. I'm going to count you in. Ready or not, here he comes, Robocock 2023. All right, we have 3, 2, on go like always, Zach. 3, 2, 1, go.
This week we're on Ganymede, where the days are long and the backstory is looming. Jet is put back with his ex-girlfriend who straight up left on him back in the day, and while he's here dealing with his demons, he finds out that she's connected to the bounty that they're there after he killed someone. And Jet must make the decision. Does he capture him? Does he let
Stop.
them go? Okay.
Okay, here's what I'll
I
say.
didn't get anything about anybody else.
I love your intro.
and
The
I didn't
days
even
are
plan that.
long.
I didn't even
Because
plan
there's
that.
15 on the watch? Fuck yeah, that's
I
great.
didn't even plan that.
Well, that's good. That earned you some bonus points for sure.
But I didn't get
does it
anybody
make up
else.
for the fact?
But I mean, come on. But what I wanted to say about what else was going on was that other stuff is going on, but it doesn't matter. What? Faye gets a tan, Ed goes fishing, and Spike gets out of the way for Jet.
Well, here's where I'm going to meet you in the road there, Zach.
Yeah.
What was important? You said that the old girl's new guy killed a guy, so that's
Yeah.
good. You got
But
that
I didn't
out
really
there.
give any
Didn't really
detail,
mention
yeah.
that she owned a bar, that she was in debt with a loan shark. and
Oh,
that's
I'm
why he
sorry.
killed a
I
guy.
didn't mention her backstory, what street
You
she grew up
didn't
on.
Talk about the whole. You didn't really get the ending, but you got a good setup. I'm gonna give you some bonus points for the beginning because I thought it was really clever. I liked that. I want to reward that. I want to let you know that that was a good thing to
Well,
do.
are you going to keep jerking me or are you going to let me come, Steven?
Solid C, right down the
Okay.
middle.
I feel like that's a little harsh, but I'll take it.
Yeah, solid C.
Okay. And
My
if I'm
expectations were
anything,
not
it's a
met.
solid C.
You started so strong. Your first
I
4
know.
seconds were stellar.
Thank you. That's something. That's a piece of advice of
You
news
start-
I've gotten a lot.
Start
yeah.
strong.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the episode, Zach. What
All
did
right.
you think about this episode? We've been kind of building up. I've been hyping you up for a while for this. Finally get Jet's backstory. This is our first Jet-centric episode. How'd you feel about it?
I really like this backstory episode because it's a totally different type of story than the Spike one was.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so caught up. I mean, there's lore to it, but it's not so caught up in the crime world or really even the police world, even though Jet was a police officer. I didn't mention that, but I liked that it was a really human story that explains kind of just Jet's demeanor where he is now, rather than there being a lot of moving pieces to follow. Even the flashback that we get, really the moral of the story is that she left him and didn't give him any notice or just kind of was gone. I really liked that it was a really human story. I really like a lot about Jet in this episode. I think he comes off really mature, makes a lot of good decisions, and the voice acting is incredible from the actor that plays Jet in the English version that we watched. The last thing I want to say is that I think by far that this is the best animated episode so far. I think there are so many moments of beautiful animation and often sound mixed with the animation that blend really well. The fight scene, the climax being on water, I think adds for a lot of cool new I don't know, shots and setups for things. A couple pieces of animation I really loved. Like when she's pouring the drink.
Yeah.
That
looks
shit's
great,
cool.
doesn't it?
And the sound effect of like the glug, 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 glug. It was all very, very pretty. There were a lot of moments that I thought were animated really well this time.
Yeah,
what about you?
You can tell how much time was spent on this episode.
It does feel like all of a sudden this episode... And this is common in television, like Community does it all the time, but it wouldn't surprise me if this is one of those episodes that they cut corners a little bit in some of the other ones so they could do this one just the way they wanted to.
Well, and this is major because I'm pretty sure after this episode, we get maybe another two-parter, if I'm correct.
Have we had two-parters yet, though?
Oh, we have not. We get our first two-parter. So
there have been the episodes where Faye came into the mix kind of felt like a two-parter, but it wasn't really like a overarching villain.
So
or anything.
I can tell you, Zach, without spoiling anything really, just base plotline wise, next week's episode is a very much a bottle episode of this show. So that's kind of a place where they could have cut some corners because they knew they wouldn't have to spend as much time animating the next episode. That they have this one this week where they can spend a little more time and money on the animation. That's the other thing is animation's expensive to have these like sakuga.
Well, especially
is what it's called
when you want. There's so many fast, fluid movements in this episode where a lot of times, I don't know, the vacuousness of space or just the style of animation that the show is, the animation can be not choppy.
Sure, it's easy to draw a fight in the emptiness of space because you only have to draw the front. But in a fight that's on a active body of water, you in a vibrant city, you have so much to constantly be drawing and animating, which is really cool. I also really like in this episode, talking about the music just for a second, there's 3 songs in particular in this episode that really stand out to me. The first one that I want to mention is the one that I mentioned last week. So Clown Sticker for me, I guess 2 weeks ago. The episode Waltz for Venus, there's a song called Waltz for ZZ that I always call Waltz for Venus.
I played the whole track at the end of that podcast.
Good.
Yeah.
That was in this episode, finally.
Oh yeah, sure. I was paying
really
attention
well.
to it, and I was paying attention to the episode, and that didn't. Is that in the beginning?
It's used throughout the whole episode, and
Cool.
it's the last song they play in it. It's the dun 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 dun.
I did. I noticed a concurrent theme that was familiar, but I think I was connecting it to previous episodes of the show, not the song that you told me to look up.
But I love that song. It's used great. I think they do a really good job when Jet is first flying around Ganymede and he's getting to the bar. They play a song that sounds a lot like if Nina Simone were singing Dream a Little Dream of Me. And it's a similar melody.
I have a question.
timbre.
Is the melody in that song, has it been used in the show before?
No, not yet.
It almost sounds reminiscent of the like music box.
Sure,
melody
it does
to me.
sound similar. I don't think it's the exact same melody, but I think that's kind of what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to elicit this feeling of, oh, I've been here before. This sounds familiar, but I don't exactly recognize it. And I think that's how Jet feels when he's flying around his home planet. He's like, okay, I know where I am. I know what this is, but I've been away for a while and it doesn't feel like home anymore. It feels like a place that I kind of used to know. This is a person that I used to know that's different. Now, the last song I want to talk about is the Kiss from a Rose.
Yeah, every time I watched it, the whole time it's da 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 da. It sounds just like Kiss from a Rose,
which is an interesting and kind of cool choice for a intense water fight.
Yeah, because it's not so much about the fight, but about the emotional weight of what they're doing.
Because you know they're not going to get away from the black dog of Ganymede.
When he bites, he doesn't let go.
Same.
Oh, I know that.
It's ruined many a relationship and friendship that I just don't let go.
Steven, stop biting.
You gotta put some hot sauce on your arm. Keep me at bay.
I think this episode, more than any we've talked about so far, is one that makes me almost wish we were doing a more in-depth thing where we could have like taken a lot of notes, because there are a lot of themes at play in this episode.
Yeah.
I like the way that they use... This is the way I took it, and I'm not an expert on the show, so maybe it means totally something else. But in the bar scene, when it keeps focusing on the drinking bird, for me, I kind of took it as Jet is the drinking bird in the situation, and that he's kind of like eating up what his ex is spewing. But then throughout the episode, he kind of sees things from another angle, is able to make more decisions for himself rather than just fall back into that nostalgia, which is really easy to do.
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of cool themes in this episode. I really like the moment where Spike is hot on the trail and Jet explains that this is for him to take care of, and that Spike shows a really nice moment of friendship between the two of them.
Yeah, he does.
He's like, yeah, okay, and he just backs off.
Because Spike could have easily been like, hey, this is about the money. Let's do this together and make sure we get it done.
And it would have been very in character for him to do that.
Yeah. I like that. I love the whole part at the bar, because I think that we're given a different image. We're given the image that Jet has in his head of that relationship, where Jet was coming home. He was like, this great guy. And then she just disappeared on us. We're like, why the fuck would she do that? But then we learn later on that Jet was who he is. I mean, he was the breadwinner. He was the guy in charge. He was always telling her how to do things and was protecting her, which for him was out of love. But I think a lot of people can relate to being in a scenario where you think that you're being helpful, but you're coddling and kind of preventing somebody from growing.
Or even deeper than that, I think I look at it more like that's just a sign that those two people aren't compatible with each other. It's not even that what Jet does is bad, because there's a partner out there for him who needs that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like it has a lot more to do with this girl. And I mean, maybe it says something that she ended up with another person who ends up being kind of on the lam and being dangerous. She seems to...
Well, yeah, and she doesn't want somebody's protection. I think a reason why she would go to somebody who's the opposite of Jet is she's like, let me grab somebody who's in a lesser dominant position than I am. I'm the older person. I'm the one who's supporting, and this is somebody who I can kind of take under my wing as opposed to being under someone else's. So it's interesting that they would think that way and pair her with somebody who is like the opposite of who Jet was to her.
Yeah. Why don't we touch on the other characters in the episode for just a second, and then we'll come wrap it up and do the captain and all that. We get, like, this is the slightest of a subplot for Faye and Ed. I almost don't like a sexy Faye thing for the sake of being a sexy Faye thing. I don't really like that too much.
Yeah, what's your problem with that, Zach? I'm just kidding.
I don't really have so much a problem when they take advantage of certain angles within a storyline, but when, like, her plot line is that she wears a bikini that's too small and puts oil on herself and lays there, that's not really a plot line. Yeah. But I do see in this episode kind of the beginnings of a sisterly relationship between Faye and Ed, with Ed being young and not really being in a world where they're really concerned that much with their looks or their skin or whatever, and Faye being the absolute opposite of that and being all oiled up, and Ed just genuinely kind of being like, what are you doing? What is this?
Like, that's weird. It's like, your leg is
Faye
soft.
giving some advice that kind of could be harmful sisterly advice of expectations, and Ed not really taking it that way at all and just being like, cool,
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice moment for both of them. I feel like I maybe don't really like Faye that much. Is Faye just kind of mean?
Yes.
Okay. Do you like her?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'll say,
I like
didn't
her more
care
as time
as much
goes
for
on.
Faye until probably the last chunk of episodes when we actually learn a little bit more.
I'm fully willing to change my mind because I kind of liked her in the beginning, but right now I'm in a place where I'm kind of...
And I'll say, I probably like Faye the most I've liked Faye watching through this time.
Cool.
And I think part of that is because my last Cowboy Bebop stuff was the live action, and I do not care for Faye's portrayal in that.
I'm excited for when we get to that. It's going to be a fun time. Animated show than we think already.
Yeah, we're like getting close to halfway.
This is kind of an off-pod discussion, but there are a couple of extra pieces of media that I'm not sure if we should do an episode of or not. There's like the 26 episodes of the show, but there's also this like special TV length thing that I think is probably only in Japanese. And it's like about them talking about their emotions and stuff. I don't know. There's like, I'll have to look it up and send it to you. I don't know if it's like
that. We should definitely do the movie.
We'll do the movie. And there's also like a Ein thing.
Ooh.
Like I don't know if it's a short or what.
Well, so a lot of times what'll happen is to get people, because how these, and we can have this on the pod, but a way that
it's all going on
these companies make money is not from you watching the show. It's from you buying the DVDs
the toys
and buying the manga.
Yeah.
That's what they get the most money from, especially DVDs.
Well, and that's everything. That's why you watch the big budget action movies, and those bring in a lot of money, but also it's the toys that cost $30 that are of the specific character doing the specific thing in that specific episode. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Well, and what they do to sell the DVDs, a lot of times they'll add what are called OVAs, which is original video animation or something along those lines to the DVD, so that you can have an exclusive bit of content. In the current internet age we have now, a lot of those OVAs end up online or even on streaming sites a lot of the times, so you can watch them anyway. But I'm guessing that like the Ein stuff and like those things were DVD or Blu-ray release exclusives.
I think we should check them out, though. There's
more
not
than
that
game.
much, so I think we should eat up everything we can.
I'm so excited to watch the movie in terms of like extra stuff. The movie's great.
What's interesting to me, though, I was just reading the Wikipedia page a little bit, and I don't know what happens, but I know that the series ends, and then the movie is like set in between a couple of episodes.
Yes.
And that almost kind of feels lame to me. I know that that's pretty common practice in anime when they do movies, that it's kind of nestled in somewhere in the lore. For whatever reason, that makes me like less excited.
I think that at the end of the series, you'll be very excited to go back and watch the movie.
I'm sure I will be. I mean, I have no
I think
qualms
that it
about
was a
That's just my
brilliant
thought.
move because of some
How
things.
the show ends.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What do you want to talk about? There's so much in this episode. Is there anything you want to mention before we give away our captain? Any other
We
little
get to
bits?
see them put in their second successful bounty, and then maybe get a
Sure.
third at the end of the episode. It's not...
Sure.
You asked me if Jet collects the bounty. I think so, because I think as long as he sends them to the cops, like there's no
because
reason
the
he
way
shouldn't get the
that
bounty.
the end of his conversation with what's her name, Elisa, with Elisa, the way the end of it, I almost thought for a second he was just saying, "You guys get out of here."
That's what it seemed like. Then the
And
cops
then
were
they
there.
cut, and it's like all the cops are there.
Yeah.
And
I think the cops had pulled up at the end anyway. That was a police ship. It wasn't super obvious, but they had pulled up at the end when Jet
But he was
standing there.
able to take care of Elisa in a way, even though that's not what she wanted.
And I'm
because
sure
of-
Jet was like, hey, this was probably a self-defense thing, so take a look into that, instead of just being like, yeah, haul him off.
Are there any other details from the episode, like with Jet and his past, or just in general, that we'll need to remember? Like anything about the policing or whatever?
Keep in mind the black dog thing, and that he never let people get away.
Like his reputation.
That he's thought of as a pretty ruthless... If this cop gets you, you're pretty much fucked. Like, you're going down.
Well, I kind of think that with all cops.
Mm-hmm.
If they get you, you're kind of just fucked.
That's fair.
But when they say not all cops, I think what they meant was Jet, because
They meant Jet. Cool. Yeah, Jet's the one.
It seems like in this like dystopian post-apocalyptic future that at least the police kind of have their shit figured out.
Yeah.
Because the bounty hunters are out there killing people for them, so they don't have to do that anymore. So what? Who's your captain? I've got to say, I'm gonna go out. It would be so easy just to say Jet because he's really great in this episode. So I'm gonna go out on a limb and give it to good old Rent, because he seems like
Rent.
It seems like he needs something. It seems like he needs something to turn this around for him a little bit. I feel bad for the guy
at the beginning who helps Jet out.
Yeah,
with
I liked
intel.
him too.
Yeah, he's
I'll
my
give it
honorable mention.
to Rent.
Yeah, Rent is not my favorite.
I figured. He's just so Weasley and shaky, and there's one part in the animation towards the end when they're having the fight where like it cuts to a close-up of his face and it looks like he's like really taking a shit. Really hardcore taking a shit.
He probably was scared.
So that one earned it for me.
I gotta give it to Jet Black. Interesting, Zach, that you go with the joke winner of the week, that the black man is the obvious.
Well, yeah, because I
choice.
wasn't giving it to Jet, even though I don't think he's black.
Jet's black. It's okay.
The
black like, dog of Ganymede.
I get all of that, but like
voiced by a black man.
But the character literally
He's
is
gray.
not. It's just because it's in Japan and they're not putting black people in their stuff that much. Steven. Last week we talked about why anime is racist or why it isn't, and this week I think we're finding out why it is in a different way.
They say we'll make them gray, but we draw
because it's not exactly the same as how. Well,
there have been black characters in the show. There are black characters in this episode.
No, gray. Yeah, you're right. But then why didn't they just make him full out black?
Not a main character.
All right, guys. Well, this has been Brokeback Bebop. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be back next week to go through episode 11. Is it a two-parter next? Are you excited for this one?
Next episode is Toys in the Attic, the bottle
Oh,
episode.
it's the bottle episode.
After
and
that, we
then
did
half of a
Jupiter
two-part.
Jazz 1 and 2.
Cool. Well, I'm excited for it. Is the bottle episode good, or is it the way you're talking about it? Is it kind of lower on the list?
It's divisive. It's lower on my list, but some people really like it.
Is it like the Fly episode of Breaking Bad?
In a way.
I'm kind of excited.
Yeah.
Just because now that we're 10 episodes deep, and every episode, even when it's different shades of what it is and different ones that I like, it's usually the same kind of formula told differently of who gets involved with the group, what happens, and how they get uninvolved with the group. So I'm excited for a change of pace.
Sure. I think especially now that we have the whole group together, it's going to be fun getting to just watch them interact with mostly each other.
Well, do you have anything left to say out there for all the anime people?
The black dog of Ganymede bites and never lets go.
All right.
The ending there sounded a little bit like Jet.
Agree to disagree.
We need to cook. I don't.
It's close. It needs some work, but I feel like you could do it.
I'll keep practicing.
Yeah, okay.
I'll be the next Jet Black.
All right.
In the English dub.
Of the live action.
When they redub it for the 50-year anniversary, I'll volunteer as tribute.
All right. Goodbye, everyone. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. I'm going to just shut this off. Steve will keep rambling. Bye. You sound like a California raisin.
Nice. Bye, everyone.
Did you know that when it snows, my eyes become large and the light that you shine can't be seen? Baby, I can pay you to a kiss from a rose on the grave. Ooh, the more I get of you, stranger it feels, yeah. And now that your rose is in bloom, a light hits the gloom on the grave.
Thanks for listening. Support this show and our podcast network at patreon.com/can'tdisappointpodcast, where starting at $5 a month, you can get immediate access to all 40 outrageous sessions of Brokeback Bebop. See you next time, Space Cowboy.